Well, you probably don't realise it, but worrying about anything, and especially about the future, it doesn't just make you feel bad. It's actually bad for you. The mere fact of worrying about anything is one of the main reasons why you have problems in your life and why you can't achieve the things that you really do want to achieve. Hi, I'm Liam Naden, and welcome to my podcast, Let Yourself Off the Hook. As someone who has studied success for decades, I have found the formula for achieving your dreams and goals, and it's all to do with how you use your brain. Each week on my show, I will provide you with the tools, resources, and expertise to utilize your brain to its ultimate potential and remove the barriers to your success. And as you will discover, true success in every area of your life only comes when you let yourself off the hook. Success killer, worrying about the future. Are you worried about the future? Do you find yourself being anxious and stressed a lot of the time and thinking about all the bad things that might happen, both to you and to the world? Does a lot of your conversation with other people revolve around discussing the bad things that are likely to happen, the bad things that are happening in the world, and about the doom and gloom of the future? Well, you probably don't realise it, but worrying about anything, and especially about the future, it doesn't just make you feel bad. It's actually bad for you. And actually, the mere fact of worrying about anything is one of the main reasons why you have problems in your life and why you can't achieve the things that you really do want to achieve. You know, a pretty wise person about 2,000 years ago said, "Do not worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will take care of itself." And that isn't just a nice idea. In this episode, we're going to look at all the reasons why worrying is such a bad idea, why it holds you back, and how you can overcome it to achieve what you really want. And here's a hint, it's all to do with how your brain works. Okay, well, it seems like worrying about the future, it's something that virtually everyone seems to do these days. Wherever you look, whoever you talk to, we're sort of bombarded with all of these thoughts and ideas about doom and gloom and how bad things are in the world and how they're going to get a lot worse. But although everyone is consumed with worry, everyone's doing worry, it's actually rather irrational when you really think about it. When you think about what worry is and the effect that it has. And it also creates roadblocks in our progress towards success and a happy life. And no one follows that instruction of do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Do you think perhaps that worrying might have something to do with the fact that so few people are actually succeeding in their life? So few people are being the best that they can be, living to their full potential, or are even happy. Could it be that there's a link between worry and failure? Well, it turns out that there is. Okay, so just think about how many of the thoughts that you have throughout the day that are filled with worry, that are making you feel anxious, stressed, afraid. And they could be things about yourself and your own personal situation. You're thinking, things aren't going well. I don't have enough money. I'm not doing the things that I want to do. My relationship's not going well. And all of these bad things could happen in the future. I won't be able to do all the things that I want to do. I'm afraid of the future because of all of these problems that I have in my life. So what will happen in the future? What am I going to do? What should I do? How am I going to cope? Will I be okay? And we have the same feelings of worry about other people, don't we? Particularly people we care about. And sometimes people we don't even know, strangers on the other side of the world that we see on the television screen. And we see them in their situation and we worry about them and think, what's going to happen to them? And of course, when it comes to thinking about the world in general, what are we thinking? What's going to happen? Are we headed for disaster? Am I going to be okay? And of course, it's not just our own thoughts that are constantly filled with worry about the future and stress and fear and anxiety. It's all our conversations with other people. When we get together with other people, what are we talking about? Isn't it about world events, about what we see on the news, about what other people are saying is happening in their lives? And of course, isn't one of the major sources of our worry, our fear, our stress and anxiety about the future is the media itself? You know, this almost constant diet of doom and gloom predictions from the experts about all of the catastrophes that are in store for us in the near future. So we bombard ourselves with all this stuff, all this negative analysis and thought about the future and prediction of catastrophe and disaster and bad things happening to us and to the world. And it doesn't have a good effect on us, does it? It doesn't have a good effect on the world. Think about how stressed we become, how many people are unhappy, how many people get sick. The number of people on medication for depression and stress is at record highs all around the world. So what's the result? We don't enjoy our life. We don't enjoy the only thing we have, which is right now. We can't seem to be able to relax and enjoy it because we're so worried and stressed about the future. Now, I'm not saying here that there's anything wrong with thinking about the future. You know, preparing for the future is a basic element of human survival. Obviously, throughout human history, societies and people have planned for the future when it comes to gathering, storing food, planning for the right time to plant the crops or harvest the crops, looking at the weather and thinking about when would be a good time to do things. And all sorts of different practices for predicting the future have come about, everything from weather forecasting to astrology, numerology, fortune telling. So there are a lot of advantages with planning for the future and having an idea about what's going to happen. But there's a difference between planning for the future, such as for planting crops, and worrying about the future. A big difference. So let's get on to looking at what those differences are, what those big differences are between thinking about the future and worrying about it. And we'll see that it not only doesn't help, but it literally blocks us from getting us to where we want to be. So why is worrying about the future such a bad idea? Well, the first reason is it's actually pointless. Because the truth is that nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. Literally nobody. And if you think you know what's going to happen, or if you try and analyse and work out what you think is going to happen, you're almost certainly, in fact, you are certain to be wrong. What you think is going to happen is simply not going to happen. And it doesn't matter who you are or how much you know, you're still going to be wrong about what happens in the future. That's virtually guaranteed. And in fact, the more you know, the more likely you are to be wrong. And this is not to disrespect anybody, but think of all of those experts that you constantly hear about or you read about, with all of their analysis, all of their predictions about what's going to happen in the future, and they're virtually always wrong. And they always have been, and they always will be. You know, the media is filled with expert forecasters in every single area you can think of, from economics, politics, health, the environment. And if you notice something interesting, whatever field they're in, they're normally predicting catastrophes. They're not predicting good things are going to happen. Most of them are predicting bad things happening. And of course, one of the reasons for that is that's what gets people's attention. People are a lot more attentive about learning about a potential catastrophe than hearing about a possible good thing happening in their life. They tend to believe, because of the way our brain works, we tend to believe more in the doom and gloom than in the good times. Think of some of the many, many predictions that have been made by the greatest experts on the planet throughout history, and that have really literally consumed the attention of millions of people, and they've never turned out to be true. Here are a few interesting ones. You know, there's a big prediction that the world was going to end in the year 1000 AD. Many people believed that the world was going to end as soon as the year 1000 came around. In 1910, there was a comet, Halley's Comet, that was due to return to near the Earth, and it was predicted that the Earth was going to pass through the comet's tail and all life on Earth would be wiped out. And we were around in 2000 when the Y2K bug happened, when they thought that all of the computers were going to stop working when the year 2000 came around, and that would create chaos and destruction all through the world. Never happened, did it? You know, everywhere you look, whether it's environmental predictions, health disasters, financial resources, all of these things, all of these doom and gloom predictions that have consumed society through the media, none of them have come true. Here are a few interesting ones. Do you remember about peak oil in the 1970s? Maybe you weren't around then, but in the 1970s, scientists believed that oil was going to run out before the end of the decade. The ecologist Kenneth Watt said by the year 2000, if present trends continue, we'll be using up crude oil at such a rate that there won't be any more crude oil left. And of course, the opposite has happened. Global oil production is actually double what it was in the 1970s, and it doesn't show any signs of running out that I can see. You know, there was a scientist at I'm just reading here, at the National Academy of Sciences, and he published a chart in Scientific American. So this wasn't some wacky publication. This was a mainstream, well-respected publication. He published a chart that looked at metal reserves, and he estimated that humanity would totally run out of copper shortly after 2000, the year 2000, and that lead, zinc, tin, gold, and silver would be gone before 1990. And there have been many climate doom and gloom predictions. For instance, the head of the UN, United Nations Climate Panel, insisted in 2007 that 2012 was the year of irreversibility. And he said, if there is no action before 2012, it's too late. You know, we talk about global warming these days. It wasn't so long ago that the catastrophe that was about to befall the planet was global cooling, a new ice age. And in 1978, there was an article in the New York Times which said that an international team of specialists had concluded from 8 indexes of climate that there is no end in sight to the cooling trend of the last 30 years. And in fact, in 1970, the Boston Globe ran a chilling headline which said, "Scientist predicts a new ice age by the 21st century." So the reality is, the experts are always wrong. But it doesn't stop us worrying and think that maybe this time around they could be right. They never have been in history, so why do we think it's any different this time around with the current batch of experts and their current predictions for the future? So why is it that none of their predictions have come true? Why are we all pretty much worried about nothing in reality? Well, one of the main reasons, is actually explained by science. And they have a term for it, and it's called chaos theory. And chaos theory, which virtually all science accepts as true, or at least as an accurate description for the way things work in this universe, the way this universe operates, what chaos theory says, it doesn't mean disorganized or random. What it means is that in a complex system, any small changes result in huge consequences, and so huge that they produce completely unpredictable results. In other words, when you have a system where everything is changing all of the time, you can't predict what's going to happen. It's far too complex, and the more complex the system, the more unpredictable and the less you are able to predict what's going to happen. And of course, there is no more complex or more changing system than our universe, the world that we live in. So knowing this, knowing that it's actually impossible to predict the future, that whatever we think is going to happen is virtually certainly not going to happen, it never has throughout history, and therefore it never will either. Knowing all that, why do we insist on thinking that we can predict the future? Why do we stick to this idea? And why do we continue, therefore, to worry and consume all of that energy and all our time worrying and trying to analyse what we think is going to happen? Why do we keep our eyes and ears glued to the news? And why do we ask other people, what do you think? What's your opinion? What do you think is going to happen? Why do we listen to other people? Why do we even listen to our own thoughts that have us worried about what might happen in the future? Well, it really comes down to one thing. It's a habit. We've got into this habit of using our thoughts and using our focus and attention, or putting our focus and attention on things that cause us to worry, because we're trying to take control of the future. But we can't take control of the future. We can only take control of the now, of the present moment. But that doesn't stop us from trying. But there are a few other ideas why worrying, particularly worrying about the future, is a bad idea. One is that it wastes your energy. It takes your energy away from the only thing that's real, which is the present moment. So instead of having energy to really contribute and develop your life in a meaningful way, you're having your energy drained by worry, stress, frustration. The other thing that worry does is that it puts your attention on things that are outside of your control. So in other words, it actually makes you feel that you are not in control of your life. It makes you feel like you are at the mercy of outside forces. And all of this drains your energy further and keeps your awareness blocked from where your power truly lies. But despite all of this, the fact that it drains your energy, the fact that everything you're worrying about is never going to happen, it's just simply not true, and so it's a waste of time. Despite all those things, none of them are actually the main reason why worrying is such a bad idea. Why worrying literally blocks you from your success. And the main reason why worrying blocks you from your success is to do with your brain. You might remember we've talked about this in previous episodes, but the way your brain works is you're set up biologically for success. You're set up to be happy. You're set up to be creative, imaginative, resourceful, solve problems, do the right things, avoid doing the wrong things, and have a life in which you are being the best that you can be. Because that's your biological purpose. That makes you have the greatest chance for survival, which on a biological level is how you operate. But the part of your brain that is activated, that is in charge, when you are being the best that you can be, when all of those good things are happening to you, when you're using all of those resources, your imagination, your creativity, your awareness, the part of your brain that is active when you're like that, when you feel stressed and worried, that part of your brain is shut down. That's the part I call your creative brain. And it's not operating effectively when you're feeling worried. Because when you're feeling worried, you activate another part of your brain, your survival fight-flight response. And in that state, when you're using that part of your brain, you're not able to access all of the resources that are available to you to give you the life that you really want. So that's the real reason why worrying is so destructive in your life, and why it's a success killer. It puts your brain in a state of disempowerment. It's using the wrong part of your brain. Okay, well I hear you say, all right Liam, I get it, don't worry. How can I not worry? There's all these terrible things going on in the world. My life isn't that great. I've got lots of problems. I've got lots of things to worry about. How can I stop worrying? Well, the first thing you need to accept is just what we've been talking about, that worrying doesn't do you any good. It's not going to help. And in fact, that's a major way that you can stop worrying, is when you realize that it's actually damaging you. It's like if someone gave you something to drink that was poison. If you knew it was poison, you wouldn't drink it. It would be a big motivation not to drink it. Even if you like the taste of it, you wouldn't drink it. So it's the same with worry. When you know that worry is actually putting your brain in the wrong state, it's not allowing you to access the state, the part of your brain that's really going to make your life as good as it can be. When you realize that worry is the enemy and that you should simply let it go. And when you realize that most of the stuff you're worrying about is simply not true, never going to be true, then that makes it easier just to say, I'm going to let it go. So what does it come down to then? Once you realize that worry is pointless, how do you get rid of it? Well, it's like so many other things. You realize that worry is just a habit. It's just a mental habit. It's a decision that you've made in every moment to focus on a negative idea, on a negative thought, on some negative information, something that makes you feel bad. And like any habit, it's simple, but not necessarily easy to change. But you can change. You can change the habit. You can change your focus and your attention away from things that make you feel stressed, worried. You can take your attention away from those and say, I'm not going to think about those anymore. I'm not going to put my attention there. Instead, I'm going to think about things that are good about my life, good about the world, because they exist as well. You might not see them on the news, depending on what news you watch, but there's other sources of news that do focus on the good things that are happening in the world. They are there. So you need to make a start and say, yes, I'm just going to change this habit of worrying, of allowing thoughts to go into my mind or allowing my attention to go on things that make me worry. All the predictions about the doom and gloom, I don't need to look at those. I don't need to think about them. I don't even need to talk to other people about them. Instead, I can think, what's good about what's going on in the world? What can I find that's good? What can I find in my life that's good? Because it's all there. It's just a question of putting your attention on it and becoming aware of it. And one of the best ways to do that, to change this habit from worrying about the future or worrying about things or catastrophes or things that you might go wrong, instead to appreciating the good things that are there, that exist, and the good things that are just as likely to, if not more likely, to come up and to show up in your life. A way to do that is to bring your attention as much as possible back to the present moment. Just focus on what's here right now. Look around. Start to become aware of all of these things that you've forgotten about. The good things in your life, the things you can be really grateful for. And also put your attention on just taking the next step. Not worrying about trying to figure out the next 20 things you should do to somehow solve a problem. Just take the next step. Just ask yourself, what's the next thing I should do right now? And just do that. And don't worry about where that's going to lead you. Just know that if you're focused on the present moment, if you're not activating this worried, stressed part of your brain, and instead you're activating your creative brain, just know that it's going to show you the right step. And it's going to show you the right steps after that, one at a time. No more and no less. You'll always be shown the next step. And if you're using your creative brain, it will always be the right step. Now, you might not know if it's the right step or not, but you can know that your creative brain, this part of your brain, it knows it's the right step. It won't lead you astray. And the funny thing is, the less you think about the future, the better it's going to be. And really, you don't want your future to be good. You want your now to be good. You want the present moment to be good. And that includes, obviously, every present moment for the rest of your life. But it starts with this present moment right now. And if you put your attention on the present moment and you use your creative brain the right way, it's going to make every moment the right moment, the best moment for you. That's what your brain is designed to do, to ensure that your life is filled with you being the best you can be. So realize that worrying about the future, trying to analyze it, trying to figure out all the bad things that are going to happen, all the different scenarios of what world events might mean or what things from your personal life might mean or the outcomes that might happen as a result, realize that all of that's really a waste of time. None of it's ever going to happen. Not in the way you see it. So if you want to think about the future, think thoughts that are going to make you feel good. Because when you feel good, you activate this part of your brain, which I call your creative brain, which will lead you down the right path. Focus on the present moment and take the next step. Everything will work out the way it's supposed to. Everything will work out well. Everything will work out the way in which it is the best for you. And in that state, where you're using your creative brain, everything you need in your life for you to be your best will show up. And your experience of life is going to be completely different. Freeing yourself from that pointless activity of worrying, that's really going to make a massive difference to your life. So let yourself off the hook. Give up the worry. And when you do, your creative brain will do the job that it's naturally designed to do, which is to make you the best that you can be. This is Liam Naden signing off. Thanks for watching. But before you go, there's some action to take. Hit the subscribe and like buttons and leave your thoughts in a comment below. I'd love your feedback. And if you have friends who you think would benefit from this, please share it with them. Thanks again for your support, and stay tuned for more from me, Liam Naden. And remember, you can only reach your full potential when you let yourself off the hook.